I got to tell you, every day it's getting worse. The media coverage of Fast and Furious is getting worse. It has been atrocious since the House Oversight Committee voted to hold Eric Holder in contempt of Congress last week. But now it's just getting bizarre. I want to share with you some of the maybe lowlights of opinion journalism today, as in like starting when the sun came up. First, we have at CNN.com in their opinion section, a CNN contributor and analyst L.Z. Granderson, who actually says, when you go and you click on this, at the top of the page, it says, "Don't be nosy about Fast and Furious." And he means it. It's unbelievable. Look at this quote here from L.Z. Granderson. "Yet not everything is our business. And in the political arena, there are things that should be and need to be kept quiet. Don't talk about Fast and Furious. First rule of Fast and Furious, you don't talk about Fast and Furious." Now, there are a couple of problems with Mr. Granderson's assertion that we shouldn't be asking any questions. First of all, the defense of the Obama administration has been that this was more Keystone Cops than Black Ops, right? They've never said, listen, this is a matter of national security. If we divulge what happened in Fast and Furious, good men could go down. No, they've said fatal mistakes were made. They've said there were problems. So it's not a matter of, protecting national security secrets. It's a matter of investigating at best, bungling and stupidity on a colossal scale. And again, I say that because in order to believe that this operation went on for more than a year and nobody involved figured out, we have no way of tracking these guns once they go to Mexico, strains my credulity. Maybe not L.Z. Granderson's, but it strains mine. But again, if you want to be kind and say that's what happened, that we actually had a government-run program sending thousands of guns to Mexico, and for more than a year, nobody involved figured out we couldn't track them, you go right ahead. For now. I have a feeling your bubble will be burst one day, but for now, you go right on believing it. But again, this isn't about national security. And secondly, most legal analysts say that the Obama administration doesn't really have a legal leg to stand on here. Look, even the Washington Post, and the Washington Post wanted to come out in favor of the administration on this one. But even the Washington Post said, yeah, Congress is probably entitled to these documents. So that's CNN's contribution to Fast and Furious. Then over at MSNBC, where Rachel Maddow has actually urged the media not to report on Fast and Furious. She has said, don't do it. If you cover Fast and Furious, you're just buying into the Fox News-ification of journalism, which I find to be an incredible slight against Cheryl Atkinson of CBS News, who won a Murrow Award for her reporting on Fast and Furious. But Rachel Maddow doesn't even want us to talk about it. Fast and Furious is like the Voldemort of Obama programs. So she might have some harsh words for her colleague, Chris Hayes, who dared write about this at MSNBC in a piece called "The Era of Post-Truth Politics." Now, you might be thinking he's getting ready to take the Obama administration to task for lying to Congress and saying that no gun walking occurred, and then 10 months later saying, oh, well, gee, yeah, gun walking actually did occur. But we didn't lie to you. We just gave you an inaccurate statement. I mean, that sounds like post-truth politics to me. Hayes doesn't even bring that up. Hayes says, given what we know about the Republican Party and the way the House of Representatives conducts itself when run by Republicans and with a Democrat in the White House, it shouldn't really count as news when a House committee finds the Democratic Attorney General in contempt of Congress. After all, the last time we had a GOP House and a Democratic Attorney General during the Clinton administration, the House Oversight Committee voted on a party line vote to find Janet Reno in contempt for failing to turn over 2 memos regarding whether an independent prosecutor was needed to investigate allegations regarding Democratic campaign financing. So this week's news that the same committee voted on a party line vote to hold Eric Holder in contempt for refusal to turn over a trove of documents shouldn't really count as news. But alas, says Chris Hayes, conservatives and House Republicans are good at ginning up outrage, and their target is the Fast and Furious program, an attempt begun under the Bush administration to track illegal guns as they made their way through the hands of Mexican drug traffickers. Now, I apologize. I actually said that this was from today. This was posted Saturday. I don't believe Chris Hayes has taken anything back, however. Think about how many factually incorrect statements were just in that one paragraph. Fast and Furious was not. And by the way, can we get that soundbite queued up, Senator Cornyn and the Attorney General Holder? Just in case Chris Hayes is watching tonight, I did tweet this link to this video to Chris Hayes so that he could watch for himself. But when Chris Hayes says that the Fast and Furious program was an attempt begun under the Bush administration to track illegal guns as they made their way through the hands of Mexican drug traffickers, he either doesn't know what he's talking about, in which case he probably shouldn't be riding on Fast and Furious. We have the clip of Cornyn, Senator Cornyn and Eric Holder asking to explain the differences between, okay. We've used it like every night for the past 3 or 4 nights, so it's got to be there somewhere. He says the tracking wasn't very well executed. And at least one of the guns that should have been monitored was used instead to shoot and kill Border Patrol agent Brian Terry. Again, Fast and Furious didn't start under President Bush. Fast and Furious began under the Obama administration. Attorney General Michael Mukasey was never briefed on Fast and Furious. Attorney General Eric Holder admitted that after stating the opposite while testifying before Congress. There was a letter. Apparently, there was a question asked of the U.S. Attorney in Phoenix, Arizona, back in 2007. And the question was, can we engage in uncontrolled deliveries of firearms? Basically, can we let guns walk? The answer was, unequivocally, no. No, you can't. No uncontrolled deliveries of firearms. Then in 2009, Fast and Furious begins under the Obama administration. 2 different programs. Under Operation Wide Receiver, which is one of the operations that the defenders of the administration refer to, there were attempts to coordinate with Mexican law enforcement. Those attempts did not work. And again, the program stopped. Now, as far as an attempt to track illegal guns in Operation Fast and Furious, see, that's the problem. There was no attempt to track the guns in Operation Fast and Furious. And again, for more than a year, we still let the guns go south. And we're supposed to believe that right up until the time that Agent Terry was killed, nobody figured out that we hadn't set up a way to track these guns. Now, again, Chris Hayes is supposedly one of the smart ones there at MSNBC. He's the intellectual. So, Chris, think about this logically for a second and tell me if it makes any sense at all. And as I mentioned, Reverend Al Sharpton was in Washington, D.C. today at the National Press Club. The Leadership Conference on Civil and Human Rights was there as well. And the MSNBC host said that this really is not about Operation Fast and Furious at all. He says this attorney has fought for voters' rights, civil rights, women's rights, and immigration rights. And it is our firm belief that that is why he is being targeted by this type of humiliation. It has nothing to do with a congressional subpoena that was issued back in October of last year, that the administration decided last week could not be complied with because of executive privilege. Nothing to do with that. Nothing to do with the fact that the administration has been patting itself on the back, proclaiming that it has turned over some 7,600 documents to the committee, when the committee believes that there are somewhere between 80,000 and 140,000 documents related to Operation Fast and Furious. They're not even asking for all of those. They're asking for about 1,300 of them. There's an email that a representative of ISA says even Attorney General Holder admits it doesn't fall under executive privilege. An email from former acting ATF Director Ken Melson to supervisors saying, hey, don't send this letter to Congress saying that we didn't know about gun walking. We did. And the Attorney General apparently refuses to release that email. Again, they want to make it about anything other than Fast and Furious. And now they're getting to the point where, in the case of Mr. Granderson, they actually are. We've got journalists telling us don't ask questions. Cameron, have you ever in your life, do you ever remember anybody in the media say, you know, sometimes it's best to just not ask a question?
No, which is why we keep going back to Michelle's point where you're just a blogger. The bloggers are the ones asking the questions now, and the quote real journalists don't even want you to ask questions. So it just gets weirder and weirder.
It's honestly, in all my time as a consumer of media, I've never seen anything like this. All my time as a employee in media, whether as a reporter or a talk show host or a producer, I've never seen the wagons circled like this, to the point that you have journalists whose job it is to ask questions say, don't. Just hush it. I want to give you one more example here. I don't have any text for you, but this is from ABC News. Their Otis, I guess this would be their POTUS blog. Matt Negrin. Darrell Issa fashions crown jewel to investigate White House. And it is this long story. The idea being that Darrell Issa has been looking, ever since the Republicans took back the House, he's been looking for a scandal. He's been looking for something, anything, to pin on the president. And now he's got it. He's got Fast and Furious. And you scroll down and they talk about, you know, the New York Times writing a piece about Darrell Issa. Mr. Negrin, excuse me, try not to sneeze. And I conquered it. Anyway, he writes, the Fast and Furious operation has been going on since 2009, and Issa has been investigating it for a year and a half. And recently, he has demanded that the Justice Department turn over documents from its internal investigation into the program. Issa took the showdown to the next stage today by writing an open letter to Obama, challenging his use of executive privilege. He wrote that executive privilege, quote, is only applicable with respect to documents and communications that implicate the confidentiality of the president's decision-making process, defined as those documents and communications to and from the president and his most senior advisors. Either you or your most senior advisors were involved in managing Operation Fast and Furious and the fallout from it, including the false February 4th, 2011 letter provided by the Attorney General to the committee, or you are asserting a presidential power that you know to be unjustified solely for the purpose of further obstructing a congressional investigation. The White House dismissed the letter as absurd, maintains Obama didn't know about the bungled operation, blah, 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 blah. So all this way down, paragraph after paragraph, about how ICE has just been on this hunt for a scandal, and he's going after anything he can, trying to pin whatever on President Obama, does Matt Negrin write this. Two high-profile experts on executive privilege argue that ISA is right, that Obama isn't using his presidential power appropriately. Mark Rozell and Mitchell Solenberger, two professors who have long studied the executive branch, wrote that wiretaps showing top-level Justice Department officials having knowledge of the gun operation cast the White House in a suspicious light. Quote, a claim of executive privilege at this moment looks like the administration has something to hide, fueling suspicions rather than getting to the bottom of the matter, they said. The fact is that Congress has a right to investigate, and questions about government involvement in a failed operation will persist until the full story is told. That cannot happen if the executive branch refuses to show documents that are directly germane to the investigation. And then he continues, ISA 58 appears to revel in the attention when he gets a good hook. There was a little nugget of journalism contained within this entire story going after Representative Issa. So once again, we have legal experts who know their stuff when it comes to executive privilege saying the Obama administration has no position to stand on right now. And yet they really don't want to report that. They'd rather make the story about Representative Issa. They'd rather make the story about how racist conservatives and Republicans are. They'd rather make the story about how sometimes there are things that you just don't want to know, and you shouldn't ask these questions. Or they want to make the story about how Republicans have never cared about Mexicans before. Republicans have never cared about these issues. Why would they care now? Clearly, it must be politics. I may be wrong in asking this question. Cameron and I were having a debate right before the show began about whether or not these are folks who are a little concerned about what Fast and Furious might be all about, or whether these are folks who've just consumed the Kool-Aid and really can't be reasoned with. I guess my question for these folks is, aren't you the slightest bit curious? I mean, you've been told by the people who are giving you your talking points, this all started under Bush. Well, last time I checked, you despised President Bush. Here would be a chance to rub it in the noses, in the face of Republicans here. See, you guys went after Obama, and instead it was all Bush's fault. Aren't you the slightest bit curious? Don't you want to know the answers to how this happened? How it went on for more than a year? How 2,000 guns went to Mexico before anybody in our government figured out that they didn't have a way to track them? Like, that doesn't bother you at all? Republican, Democrat, left, right, liberal, conservative, that doesn't bother you? That just, again, at best, that's sheer incompetence. At worst, and it's those crazy theories about individuals with anti-gun attitudes wanting to use this operation to push for more gun control, which, by the way, they have.